Hi, Phil Aston here from Now Spinning Magazine. Quite recently, I did a video where I basically asked people about which of the three big rock bands, Holy Trinity I think I called them, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath and Deep Purple, which ones you played the most. And it started from a poll where I'd asked people which ones you liked the most, which I realised at the time was probably not the best way of pitching that. So it became which one of those three bands you played the most. And one of the observations or criticisms which I take on board was that why didn't I include Uriah Heep? I didn't include Uriah Heep because where I was in the UK, it was always those three bands, Purple, Sabbath and Zeppelin. However, now looking back through the lens of time, it doesn't feel fair. So what I did, I'm not doing the video again, but what I decided to do was after doing that, I thought, especially as looking through the comments and some of the emails and messages I had, is that there's a lot of younger people watching these videos. And I always, again, wrongly sometimes presume that a lot of people watching it know all this stuff back to front. So what I've done is, and this was actually recorded at the same time as I did the original video, but I felt it was already too long, so I stripped this bit out, is I decided to pick three albums from Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin and Uriah Heep, which I feel would be a great place to start for anybody new to the music. Now, I've tried to pick them based on what I feel represents the band the most. So no doubt some of you are thinking, how could you have possibly missed out that particular album? And obviously with a band like Deep Purple, trying to stay to three albums was very tricky for me because I was trying to think, well, surely I've got to get something from every lineup to show how the band progressed. And there's so many different things to explore. No, strictly, I've kept to three albums which I feel represent or would be a great place to start for each of these four iconic rock bands. So here we go. So as Black Sabbath were voted first out of these three bands, I'm going to start with them. And this is an interesting exercise because I am a fan of every lineup of Sabbath. I'm a massive fan of Tony Martin and Dio. To me, it's just Black Sabbath. As I've said before, you can trust every Black Sabbath album. They're all valid. But what was interesting when I thought I'm going to pick three Black Sabbath albums to let new people listen to say this is what Black Sabbath are all about, they are actually all from the Aussie period. And this was also tricky because really, am I picking from my own love of this music or what I feel is are the ones that represent the band the most? So when I thought about that, I thought, should I pick what people would expect outside of what I feel from my heart? So that would mean I would pick the first Black Sabbath album because it's the birth of metal. But I haven't. I wanted to pick something that kind of showed the band once they'd started to evolve and what I felt was where the band were reaching peaks in their excellence. And some of this may be controversial, some of it may not. Anyway, first, in my Sabbath pick of the top three for anyone new wanting to visit this band is Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. A progressive rock masterpiece, let alone heavy metal, in the way that it's positioned and what's on it. I haven't even done an isolated video on this yet. But this, to me, if you want to show people listen to what Black Sabbath are all about, then this album ticks all of those boxes. It has light and shade. It has thunderous riffs, angst, driven, emotive, deep lyrics to keep you thinking, especially in National Acrobat. It has gentleness and fluff. Sabacadabra is a love song. Spiral Architect, Looking for Today, Who Are You? Killing Yourself to Live. One of the best songs about sorting yourself out or what you want to do with your career. Listen to that, everybody. And Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. bog knows how you bog, whatever it is, that lyric, and where it screams out, "You bastard." The amount of us from a certain age who played that as loud as we could to see if our parents would notice and think they were losing control of their child. So Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is my first choice for 3 albums to introduce you to the world of Black Sabbath. Second, strangely enough, these are all in order of release. Sabotage from 1975, the year I left school. A lot of people think this cover is weird. I think this cover is fantastic because Geezer is wearing what looks like a blue women's coat with an umbrella. Bill Ward is wearing his wife's tights, and Ozzy's wearing a kimono, probably bought from a shop in New Street in Birmingham, and Iommi is sitting cross-legged on the floor. I think they look amazing. They are being themselves. They are unique. And this album contains Hole in the Sky. This is the heaviest. This is heavy metal. This is fantastic. I mean, all the songs were probably already then just north of where Ozzy could reach in his vocal range. They are really high, but the riffs, guitar overdub over guitar overdub over guitar overdub, really bringing home Iommi's genius in this music. Don't Start Too Late, Simpsons in the Universe, an evil, menacing riff that has all the ingredients to make you just want to pile it up. Geezer Butler's bubbling bass and Bill Ward's jazz-driven drums. It also has Megalomania, probably one of the jewels in the crown of Sabbath's entire output. The growling delivery from Ozzy before each one of those riffs comes round in a circular motion. It's just incredible. The thrill of it all. Superstar, Am I Going Insane, and The Writ, which is how they were feeling about their current record label and management at the time. But Sabotage, it is the second of 3 albums, for those of you who don't know much about Black Sabbath, that I recommend you listen to. The third one, some of you will not agree with, but to me it shows where they were heading. Again, the prog-tinged aspect of it, but technical ecstasy. Some people don't like this at all. It took me 45 years to like Never Say Die, as many of you know. But this one I liked immediately. This to me was a new Black Sabbath, a Black Sabbath pushing the envelope, not being told what to do. You won't change me. The angst in that vocal delivery by Ozzy and the guitar solo, one of Tony Iommi's finest guitar solos, the notes tumbling like a waterfall over rocks as he tears his heart out. It's All Right by Bill Ward singing that. Backstreet Kids. Oh, I used that when I was an apprentice, going to those awful factories in Aston when I was an apprentice. That got me through, listening to one little earphone in a portable cassette player on the bus going into work. All Moving Parts Stand Still, Rock and Roll Doctor, She's Gone, and Dirty Women. I remember Robin Valk saying one of the greatest rock songs that ever came out of Birmingham. There you have it. So those are my 3 for Black Sabbath. Let me know what you think. Do you agree? What would you introduce people to with Black Sabbath? Next, Deep Purple. Burn. My favourite album by Deep Purple, period. This I would always introduce to people and say you need to listen to this because it contains my number 1 Deep Purple track, period, which is the track Burn. Burn has everything. It has a drum solo behind the verses. It has one of the best guitar solos you've ever heard. Fantastic keyboard player, fantastic vocals. It's sci-fi, it's metal, it's symphonic, it's speed metal, it's everything. It's rock music. It is brilliant. Might Just Take Your Life vocals from David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes, the way they work together. Sail Away, the soul, the funk. Mistreated, one of the, again, another classic from the Purple Canon. You all know what's going on here. A200, seen as a throwaway track, but featuring one of Ritchie Blackmore's finest guitar solos he ever laid down. Burn, from 1974. Next, which just so happens to be my second favourite Deep Purple album of all time, is Men in Japan. The perfect introduction, really, because you don't need machine head in many ways, because all the best bits of machine head are on here, but everything is bigger and louder than anything else. Space Trucking, 4 minutes 50 odd seconds is it, I think, on the studio album, a whole side, featuring aspects of Mandrake Root and Falls and other things, which at the time I didn't know. Smoke on the Water, The Mule, one of the only drum solos, apart from one I'm going to mention in a minute, where I can cope with listening to over and over again, even now. Strange Kind of Woman, Lazy, the coupling there is just stunning. Highway Star and Child in Time. It's definitive. Although I do listen to the in rock version of Child in Time a lot, Highway Star here is, I've said this before, Deep Purple live was danger. They weren't playing safe here. They only just made it. When you hear the other takes of the other nights that they recorded, you can tell that sometimes it didn't work. So they're on the verge of, they're running around the stage, whereas now I think people wouldn't be as adventurous, because they'd be worried about, oh, is this going to be shared on social media? I might make a mistake. They didn't know anyone outside of Japan was ever going to hear this. It's one of the best live albums ever. Next, which might be a surprise for some of you, but it is my third favourite Deep Purple album. And from the funk of Sail Away and Burn and Stormbringer happened after that, but this to me showed another aspect of Deep Purple. Tommy Bolin, one of the finest guitarists that ever lived as well in my mind, but Ian Pace on this. This is when Ian Pace, whereas Ian Pace was obviously always to the fore, those three, Blackmore, Lord and Pace. But on this one, I think Pace had found another level of his own skills and technique. And I think the style of music gave Ian Pace a chance to do other things. And he kind of took this further still with Pace, Aston and Lord. But Pace on here is just incredible. But Drifter, one of my favourite Deep Purple songs. Coming Home, where Tommy Bolin was just probably told, do what you like on air, play as many notes as you want, and he did. Getting Tighter, the funk from Hughes, Dealer, I Need Love, You Keep On Moving. So different to what people expected from Purple. But as the years have rolled by, You Fool No One has probably taken a life of its own as being one of Purple's finest tracks. Yes, Purple are still going. There's Morse, there's McBride, there's the Reunion. But I've only got chance and I've got to be strict. So I could have picked in rock, but I didn't. I know, again, many of you will think, well, if you're going to show 3 Deep Purple albums to people who don't know anything about them, how can you miss out in rock? I have. But I've picked three albums that I feel show the different dimensions of the band. And equally, there are 3 lineups, even in these. Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin next, and I've got to pick Led Zeppelin 1, which might make some of you think, why didn't I pick in rock then, or the first Black Sabbath album? Why Led Zeppelin 1? This is the Zeppelin album I play the most. And each time I listen to this, what gets to me is the production by Jimmy Page, the use of the studio, the way that the recording studio was seen as an exciting environment, that the audience were going to be absolutely bowled over by the fact that there were guitars whizzing from one speaker to the next. There were things in the distance, in the foreground, there were things moving around. There were overdubs that were just about there, the way that the reverb was used and the voice. It's just amazing. And obviously, this kind of stereo effect was used on all the albums in rock again. And in fact, we lost some of that. Now, most music is mixed for someone listening to it on a Bluetooth speaker with one speaker. So basically, things are almost mono now compared with stereo back then. Anyway, I digress. This, to me, there was nothing else like it. So I'll admit, although Purple of the band I play the most out of this threesome, I cannot get away from the fact that without this, the others wouldn't have happened. Babe, I'm Going to Leave You, You Shook Me, Days Confused, How Many More Times, which is my favourite track off this. And the way that they have that kind of medley of stuff in amongst it, it is unbelievable. And for new people want to know where Zeppelin came from and maybe giving them a taste into the whole British blues boom, this is excellent. Next, Led Zeppelin 4. Because to me it's complete. There's a couple of tracks that I don't play that often of this, which are on side 2. But When the Levees Breaks, which is also the last where the album ends, Stairway from Heaven's on here, etc. Rock and Roll, Black Dog, Black Live Evermore. This is, for anyone wanting to discover Led Zeppelin, you cannot not describe that. And then the other one has got to be Physical Graffiti. This, for me, in 1975, got me through all of my exams, which I didn't do very well at, to be honest. Got me through starting my first job, which I hated. I played it over and over again. And this was the album where I was such a Philistine, really, because I liked hard rock and heavy metal. I didn't do ballads. I didn't really do acoustic stuff, which is probably one of the reasons why I liked Purple first, because it was fast, furious, guitar solos, keyboard solos, and I liked Sabbath for the riffs. That there were elements of Led Zeppelin stuff when Jimmy Page would do an acoustic number I used to just turn off. This changed all of that because of, side 3, Into the Light and Down by the Seaside, and the variety, the light and shade. I started to understand. It had Kashmir on it. It had The Rover on it. It had Custard Pie, the Wanton Song, In Your Time of Dying, Night Flight, Boogie Stew. There was just so much. And tricky how I view this now, and to actually say, how do you compare this to everything you've showed so far? It's just an essential album. I've covered this elsewhere, I believe. Anyway, so before I sign off, I feel I should dip my toe into the water for Uriah Heep. Although we've not talked about them, they were there. And so for those of you who are thinking, well, he did mention Uriah Heep, and I don't know anything about them, I don't know what to do. And this is another good example. Uriah Heep is still going, and in the last 20, 30 years of their career, which only goes back to the 90s, if you think about where we are really, they're making tremendous albums. The last one, Chaos and Colour, was absolutely stunning. But to try and find 3 albums that to introduce a new person to their music, they all happen to be from the 70s. The first one is Look at Yourself. This to me was there in rock. And it had July Morning on it, which was Uriah Heep's Child in Time, perhaps. Look at Yourself, powering number, a bit like Flight of the Rat in some ways. Love Machine, great riff. Tears in Your Eyes. Listen to that if you want to know. So don't miss Uriah Heep out. I know this video is a bit like something jumping on the end of it, but I think it's important to mention it because I know a lot of you hopefully will understand that. So Look at Yourself. Next, a couple of years later, 3 years later, Uriah Heep Live from 1973. One of the best live albums of all time. And I mentioned earlier that The Mule by Ian Pace from Deep Purple's band in Japan is one of the only drum solos I can listen to now without wanting to put something else on. There's a drum solo on this, on Gypsy, which I can always listen to. It's control, it's rhythmic, it's musical, it's superb. From the late Lee Kerslake, absolutely fantastic. But this has the definitive version of July Morning on it, bar none. And finally, probably their 1972, which was their Machine Head period, is Demons and Wizards, which is an album. I used to play this more, but now I've moved on to the studio one. So do you agree with me? Probably not. So what would be your 3 Black Sabbath albums, Deep Purple albums, Led Zeppelin albums, Uriah Heep albums, which would be a great place to start for somebody who is new to the band? In a way, Led Zeppelin was easy, wasn't it? Because they didn't actually do that many albums. And obviously Uriah Heep and Purple had a vast amount. So 3 was really, really difficult. Anyway, thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments. Reach out to me. Let me know what you think. Please subscribe. Ring that little bell. Tell everyone about Now Spinning Magazine. You can buy a t-shirt and walk around with the coolest thing probably on planet Earth. But thank you very much. Check out the website at nowspinning.co.uk and subscribe to the podcast as well. Take care. Remember, music is the healer and the doctor. And I'll talk to you all very, very soon.